Well, it's summertime, time for a road trip. And long drives include large billboards. Lots and lots of billboards. There are 32,162 billboards just in the state of Florida. America's most, by the way. Georgia ranks 17th with 12,360. The state of Delaware allows 379 billboards per highway mile, the greatest density of these ad boards in America. And apparently the key to advertising at 70 miles per hour is brevity. There's the 6 words, 6 seconds rule. The average billboard gets 6 seconds of a driver's attention, thus it should contain 6 words at the very most. But God also had a billboard where He advertised His values to His people. In the camp of Israel, God had a walking, talking, human billboard that put His aspirations for us on display. We read of the Nazarite in Numbers chapter 6. Well, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, when either a man or a woman consecrates an offering to take the vow of a Nazarite to separate himself to the Lord." Now, chapters 3 and 4, they discuss the role and duties of the Levites. The Levites were to assist the priests with the tabernacle and its sacrifices. But the Levites were not the only Israelites that could be uniquely dedicated to God. For any Hebrew from any tribe could take the vow of a Nazarite. The term Nazir means to set apart. And a Nazarite was a person who took a special vow to God. Sometimes the vow lasted a month. At other times a year. Some people were Nazarites their whole life long. Samson, Samuel, John the Baptist were Nazarites from birth. The Nazarite vow consisted of 3 parts. Verse 3. He shall separate himself from wine and similar drink. He shall drink neither vinegar made from wine, nor vinegar made from similar drink. Neither shall he drink any grape juice, nor eat fresh grapes or raisins. All the days of his separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, from seed to skin. In Bible times, grapes were known as God's candy. Don't you love grapes? I do. They're a sweet treat. They're a tasty delight. They're a symbol of joy. The fruit of the vine was synonymous with physical pleasure. But the Nazarite, part of his vow was to say no to grapes, no to wine, no to the fruit of the vine. He lived for spiritual satisfaction. Vow number 2, verse 5. All the days of the vow of his separation, no razor shall come upon his head, until the days are fulfilled for which he separated himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. Then he shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. The Nazarite gave up basic grooming. He was forbidden to trim his hair or his beard. When you saw a Nazarite, his hair was always knotty and nappy. For a Nazarite, every day was a bad hair day. Obviously, the man's top priority wasn't his physical, outward appearance. He was a person far more concerned with internal integrity than external beauty. You remember Samson. He wasn't strong because of his long hair. His long hair was a result of his vow, the vow of a Nazarite. And then the third vow, verse 6, all the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he shall not go near a dead body. In other words, funerals and viewings were off limits to the Nazarite. He shall not make himself unclean, even for his father or his mother, for his brother or his sister, when they die, because his separation to God is on his head. All the days of his separation he shall be holy to the Lord. Even if the deceased was a close family member, the Nazarite was not to associate himself with death. He reminded the nation that ultimately life is eternal, not temporal. 1 John chapter 2, verse 16 sums up the world system that opposes and exalts itself against God and against God's values. You could call it the World Wide Web. Here it is. For all that is in the world, it all gets summed up: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. Notice the three traps in this web. What John calls the world is made up of the lust of the flesh. Or you could put it, the desire to feel great. The lust of the eyes, the desire to look great. And the pride of life, or the desire to be great. And this is how the world without God operates. Everybody today is out there trying to feel great and look great and be great. Here's the world system summed up in today's advertising lingo: feel great, obey your thirst. If it feels good, do it. That's all about feeling great. And look great. What you see is what you get. Image is everything. Oh, it's all about looking great and being great. Yes, you can have it all. You can have it your way. You can be great. Yet the Nazirite vow was the antithesis to the ways of this world. The person under this vow was a walking billboard for God's values. He spoke by his actions that real joy isn't found in the physical, but in the spiritual sources of life. A healthy identity isn't based on external appearance, but on internal character. And true ambition isn't for temporal gain, but for eternal glory. You and I need to be spiritual Nazirites. We need to be walking advertisements for God's ways and God's will. We need to demonstrate to the people around us that real life is found in the spiritual, not the physical, the internal, not the external, the eternal, not the temporal. Take joy from the Holy Spirit, not from distilled spirits. Develop an inner beauty, not just an outward facade. And reach for goals that are forever, that never fade away. But what if the Nazirite takes a bus home from work one day and some guy drops dead right next to him of a heart attack, causes him to break his vow? He's touched something that's dead. Well, verse 9 tells us what he should do. And if anyone dies very suddenly beside him, and he defiles his consecrated head, then he shall shave his head on the day of his cleansing. On the 7th day he shall shave it. Then on the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest, to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. And the priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, and make atonement for him, because he sinned in regard to the corpse. And he shall sanctify his head that same day. He shall consecrate to the Lord the days of his separation, and bring a male lamb in its first year as a trespass offering. But the former days shall be lost, because his separation was defiled. And so after shaving his head and offering the appropriate sacrifices, he could start over, fulfilling the length of his vow, but the days leading up to the violation were lost. And when the vow was completed, verse 13 describes what followed. The priest offered a burnt offering, and then a sin offering, and then a peace offering, and then a grain offering, and then a drink offering. It was quite a barbecue. And then verse 18, then the Nazirite shall shave his consecrated head at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and shall take the hair from his consecrated head and put it on the fire, which is under the sacrifice of the peace offering. Strange but beautiful imagery. A man's hair is always symbolic of his strength and his honor. The peace offering spoke of fellowship with God. So, when he laid down his strength under the fellowship of God, he was surrendering his all, his might, his strength, his honor, in order to have fellowship with his God. A beautiful picture. And the priest shall take the boiled shoulder of the ram, one unleavened cake from the basket, and one unleavened wafer, and put them upon the hands of the Nazarite after he was shaved his consecrated hair. And the priest shall wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. They are holy for the priest, together with the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the heave offering. After that, the Nazarite may drink wine, for his vow is now complete. This is the law of the Nazarite, who vows to the Lord the offering for his separation. And besides that, whatever else his hand is able to provide, according to the vow which he takes, so he must do according to the law of his separation. And so now, not only the Levites and priests, but anyone in Israel could specifically devote themselves to God by fulfilling a Nazirite vow. Verse 22. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, This is the way you shall bless the children of Israel. Say to them. Now, whenever the priest went behind the veil into God's presence, there was some apprehension. Would God accept this sacrifice, or would he reject it? Would God accept the priest, or would he reject him? Well, the Lord gave to Moses a blessing of reassurance that the priest, Aaron, could share with Israel upon his reappearance. It expressed God's acceptance and heart for his people. It brought to the people a sigh of relief. And it was this Aaronic blessing, the blessing of Aaron, that became a hallmark of Israeli history for centuries, before and after sacred assemblies, at the close of the evening and morning sacrifice, during times of national emergency. When the high priest spoke to the people on behalf of God, he would utter this blessing. In fact, most Sundays at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, my pastor, Chuck Smith, would close with a musical version of this priestly blessing. I always remembered it. It sounded so cool. Here he is.
The Lord bless thee, and keep thee. The Lord make his face to shine upon thee, and be gracious unto thee, and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee, and give thee peace. God bless you.
So here's the priestly blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And these are the same intentions that God has towards you. He wants to bless your life. He wants to keep you in the center of his will. As a child of God, prosperity and security are your lot in life. To make his face shine upon you is to share with you his glory. God wants you to absorb and radiate his goodness to the world around you. He promises to be gracious to you, not exacting and harsh, but gracious. And he's going to lift up his countenance upon you. That means he'll smile on you when he thinks of you. Imagine that. God takes joy in us. When he sees us, it puts a smile on his face, not a frown. God wants us to experience the same peace he enjoys. The priestly blessing reminded Israel and his people today that God is a blesser, not a bouncer. Verse 27. And so they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. What an amazing blessing. He'll put his name on the children of Israel. You know, when my kids were born, I put my name on my kids. Kathy washed 4 jerseys that all read Adams on the back. We put our name on them. And we tried to live in a way that name meant something. Adams is don't quit. Adams is don't lie. Adamses don't use foul language. Adamses show respect. Adamses fear God. And Adamses love Jesus. And because my children have the name Adams, they know their dad will never abandon them. But I also gave my kids another name. I gave them their own name. And this means that though they're an Adams, they're also individuals that make their own choices and live their own lives and plot their own course. I trust that that Adam's name guides them, but their destiny is their own choice. And so when God puts His name on His people, the same dynamic occurs. We're under His authority. We're assured of His love. We are a possessor of common values, Christian values. We have His name on us. But His name doesn't stifle our individuality. We still have choices to make. We plot our course. We find our place. And hopefully we do so without violating what it means to be Christian, His name. So when God put His name on Israel, it became her greatest blessing, as it is ours. Chapter 7 tells us, "Now it came to pass when Moses had finished setting up the tabernacle, that he anointed it and consecrated it in all its furnishings, and the altar and all its utensils. So he anointed them and sanctified them. Then the leaders of Israel, the heads of their fathers' houses, who were the leaders of the tribes over those who were numbered, made an offering. And they brought their offering before the Lord, 6 covered carts and 12 oxen, a cart for every 2 of the leaders, and for each one an ox. And they presented them before the tabernacle. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Accept these from them, that they may be used in doing the work of the tabernacle of meeting. And you shall give them to the Levites, to every man according to his service. So Moses took the carts and the oxen and gave them to the Levites. 2 carts and 4 oxen he gave to the sons of Gershon, according to their service." Remember the family of Gershon? They carried the fabrics of the tabernacle, the curtains and the coverings and the screens. And 4 carts and 8 oxen were given to the sons of Merari, according to their service, under the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. For the Merarites, they carried the framework of the tabernacle, the boards and the pillars and the sockets and the pegs and the cords. But to the sons of Kohath he gave none, because theirs was the service of the holy things, which they carried on their shoulders. And since the Kohathites moved the furniture of the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, and the menorah, and the 2 tables, and the bronze laver, and the altar, since the furniture was to be transported on poles, the Kohathites didn't need a cart or an ox. Now remember King David. He made a terrible mistake. One day he wanted to move the ark to the city of Jerusalem, and he put the ark on an oxen-driven cart. Exactly what Numbers had told him not to do. It hit a rock. That cart started to skid. The ark started to slide. And that's when Uzzah the priest, he reached out to brace the ark. And he was struck dead. Uzzah violated God's law here in Numbers. Each piece of the tabernacle furniture had rings at its 4 corners. Gold-plated poles slid through those rings, and the priests were to pick up the furniture by poles and transport it on foot. But Uzzah had been politically incorrect. Politically incorrect? He had made a deadly mistake. And here's the application for us. Ox-drawn carts represent the technology of the day. And God can certainly use technology to a point. Some save effort and energy by loading the fabrics and framing on the cart. But the furniture, the holiest objects, were not to be left to technology. Why? Because things can slip. Holy things need human oversight. God wanted them shouldered by holy men. And that's why watching church on the internet is no substitute for being here. That's why an email prayer list can never replace a real prayer meeting. That's why blogs are not the same as in-person Bible studies. And worship in cyberspace isn't like worship in a holy place. And satellite feeds don't feed the need for real fellowship with Christians. You see, churches should utilize the latest technology. Carts and oxen, if you will. Lots of things can be done online. But don't download holy things to oxen and to carts. For God wants the holy things done politically correct in the way that He wills. Notice verse 10. Now the leaders offered the dedication offering for the altar when it was anointed. So the leaders offered their offering before the altar, for the Lord said to Moses, they shall offer their offering 1 liter each day for the dedication of the altar. And for the next 12 days, a leader from each of the different Israeli tribes offer an identical offering to God. It was sort of a Hebrew version of the 12 days of Christmas. They all came with their offerings. And the one who offered his offering on the first day was Nahshon, the son of Amminadab, from the tribe of Judah. Now his offering was 1 silver platter, the weight of which was 130 shekels, and 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, both of them full of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. 1 gold pan of 10 shekels, full of incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 1 male lamb in its first year as a burnt offering. 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering. And for the sacrifice of peace offerings, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats, and 5 male lambs in their first year. This was the offering of Nahshon, the son of Amminadab. And for the next 11 days, each tribe will bring the exact same offering to the Lord. And I know why. Ever notice at Christmas there's always somebody trying to outgive everybody else? You ever notice that? We can even turn our gift giving into a contest, can't we? An ego trip. God didn't want that to happen to Israel, so He had everyone bring the exact same gifts. And this may be one reason that God has instituted the tithe as a way of giving. Make $1 million or live at poverty level, doesn't really matter. God asks the same percentage from us all. Across the board, it's 10%. Nobody outgives the other. And then verse 89, we'll jump ahead a bit. Now when Moses went into the tabernacle of meeting to speak with him, he heard the voice of one speaking to him from above the mercy seat that was on the ark of the testimony, from between the 2 cherubim. Thus he spoke to him. Remember, the ark was a miniaturized model of God's throne room in heaven. And it was over the ark that God's glory rested in tangible, visible form. From the mercy seat, God spoke to Moses in an audible voice. Today, Jesus is our mercy seat, the New Testament tells us. Just as God met Moses at the mercy seat, He now speaks to us through His Son Jesus. Several New Testament passages refer to Jesus as our propitiation. It means a place of mercy. Jesus is now the place we go to find mercy and to know God. Well, chapter 8, we're making progress. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and say to him, when you arrange the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give light in front of the lampstand." Now the menorah was 1 lamp with 7 branches and bowls. And Aaron did so. He arranged the lamps to face toward the front of the lampstand as the Lord commanded Moses. The menorah was the only light in the tabernacle. And yet it was useless unless it was properly positioned to shine. It's interesting, in Revelation chapter 1, verse 20, we find another 7-branch lampstand. It's called the church, the 7 churches. We are the light of the world, Jesus called us. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 16, Jesus said, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." God wants our light to shine brightly with His love and truth. But at times, we too need to be repositioned so we can shine the light where it's needed most. And our high priest, none other than Jesus, is in charge of rearranging us so that we can shine brightest. This is why he moves us to a new job, or he crosses our path with an old friend, or he alters our schedule and he breaks our routine. Our high priest has a way of repositioning our lamp so it will shine more brightly. And then verse 4 comments on the construction of the lampstand. Now this workmanship of the lampstand was hammered gold. From its shaft to its flowers, it was hammered work, according to the pattern which the Lord had shown Moses, so he made the lampstand. Hammered gold meant that the menorah was beaten or hammered from one piece, not assembled in different parts. And this is how God works in us. He hammers us and he beats us down until we take the shape that he desires so that he can shine through us the light of God into a dark world. In the latter half of chapter 8, the Levites are dedicated to service. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the Levites from among the children of Israel and cleanse them ceremonially. Thus you shall do to them to cleanse them. Sprinkle water of purification on them, and let them shave all their body, and let them wash their clothes, and so make themselves clean." See, a child has zero body hair except on his head. And so the idea of shaving and ridding yourself of adult hair was symbolic of returning to a youthful innocence, recovering a childlike humility. This was the point of them rededicating themselves to God. You know, it's good to get a spiritual shave from time to time, to ask God for a new beginning. Lord, refresh me. Give me that fresh feeling of forgiveness, Lord. Renew the calling you've placed on my life. This is the prayer we need to pray from time to time. Well, the rest of chapter 8 dedicates the Levites. Sacrifices are offered and the people lay their hands on the Levites. Verse 13, "You shall stand the Levites before Aaron and his sons, and then offer them like a wave offering to the Lord." This means the Levites were the first people in history to do the wave. Verse 14, "Thus you shall separate the Levites from among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine. After that the Levites shall go into the service of the tabernacle of meeting. So you shall cleanse them and offer them like a wave offering, for they are wholly given to me from among the children of Israel." Now go back to that photo of the wave. You realize only fans do the wave. That's right. And this is why the Levites were presented as a wave offering. They were fanatical about the service of God. Notice they were wholly given to God. Are you wholly given to God? Have you given him just a little bit? Or maybe you're partially given to God. Maybe you've even gone beyond what you thought you could ever be. But are you wholly given to God? Why not? If you're going to give it all to God, just give it all. Just go all in. The Levites were wholly given to God. I hope the same can be said of us. Do we love God with all our strength? Now remember when God saved the firstborn of Israel from the death plague that broke Egypt's back. God said that the firstborn belonged to him. Now though, God has swapped the firstborn with the tribe of Levi, who will assist Aaron and his sons in their priestly and sacrificial duties. The Levites have become a gift from God. Verse 19, "To do the work for the children of Israel in the tabernacle of meeting, and to make atonement for the children of Israel." Verse 23, "Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This is what pertains to the Levites. From 25 years old and above, one may enter to perform service in the work of the tabernacle of meeting. And at the age of 50 years, they must cease performing this work and shall work no more." Mandatory retirement at 50 years old if you were a Levite. Now recall Numbers chapter 4 verse 3. The Levites started their ministry there at 30 years of age. Here it's 25. What gives? Well, there must have been a 5-year apprenticeship before beginning their own ministry, before actually getting the full duties of the Levite. They had some time to work into it, which is always a good thing for a young pastor. Mandatory retirement, though, was still 50. After 50, verse 26, they may minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of meeting to attend to needs, but they themselves shall do no work. Thus you shall do to the Levites regarding their duties. And this is what James and I do up at the church. We just come up to the church, during the day and boss Matt and Andrew around and tell them what to do and make sure everybody else is doing all the work. Because we're past 50. We're not supposed to do anything ourselves. We're supposed to just tell the other people what to do. After age 50, a Levite was limited to a mentoring role, surely. His job was to pass the baton. It was to help the younger guys learn the ropes. Why? For life is not just a race, friends. It's a relay race. And the winner of the relay is the team with the best exchange. That means a successful pass is just as vital as blinding speed. And so those of you that are Christians over 50 years old, here's the question I got to ask you. What are you doing to pass the baton to the next generation? Perhaps you can help support and get involved with this new CBI here starting here at Calvary Chapel, Stone Mountain. Well, chapter 9. Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the children of Israel keep the Passover at its appointed time. On the 14th day of this month at twilight you shall keep it as an appointed time. According to all its rites and ceremonies you shall keep it. Now this is the Hebrews' second Passover. The first was in Egypt. The blood of the lamb was spread on the doorposts and the thresholds of each house. Death passed over where the blood had been applied. The second Passover now is a commemoration of the first, a celebration of their deliverance. And Jews have been keeping Passover for the last 3,450 years. Verse 6. Now there were certain men who were defiled by a human corpse, so that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and Aaron that day. And those men said to him, we became defiled by a human corpse. Why are we kept from presenting the offering of the Lord as its appointed time among the children of Israel? Now see, they wanted to keep the Passover, but they'd accidentally touched a corpse. And now they were ceremonially defiled. And Moses said to them, stand still, that I may hear. It's interesting how many times God tells us to stand still. We get so fidgety, don't we? We shuffle around and we worry about what's next. And sometimes we just need to hear those words, stand still. Wait on me, that I may hear what the Lord will command concerning you. I love Moses' humility here. Moses was a man of God. But here he admits he's not sure what God's will is in this situation. So rather than fake it, rather than assume, rather than guess, he seeks the Lord. And we too would avoid a whole lot of trouble if we followed Moses' example. Well, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if any one of you or your posterity is unclean because of a corpse or is far away on a journey, he may still keep the Lord's Passover. On the 14th day of the second month at twilight they may keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. God wanted all his people to eat the bitter herbs. That fiery hot horseradish. You remember that when we do that in the Passover Seder? He wanted all the people to shed a few tears from that horseradish, to relive the bitterness of Egyptian slavery. It's good for all of us to remember the tears and the pain and the consequences of sin. Verse 12, they shall leave none of it until morning, nor break one of its bones. He's talking about the Passover lamb here that was sacrificed, that had its blood spread on the door. It was eaten as the main course of the Passover meal, and not one of its bones was to be broken, and for a very crucial reason. The New Testament refers to Jesus as our Passover. And like the lamb, he wasn't left until morning, nor was one of his bones broken. You know, often the victim of a crucifixion was left on the cross for days afterwards until he died. But because of the special Sabbath the next day, Jesus had to be buried immediately. He wasn't left on the cross. And sometimes a victim's death was hastened by the breaking of his legs so that he could no longer hike himself up to take that breath. He would die of suffocation. But you remember that wasn't needed when the soldier came to Jesus, for he found that Jesus was already dead. And thus John 19 verse 36 tells us they did not break his legs, and he was not left until morning, fulfilling both prophecies here in Numbers verse 12. The point, though, is that if you missed the Passover because you were out of town or because you were ceremonially unfit, well, then just keep it the following month. The 14th month of the second day would work for you. God's pretty easy to work with. Verse 14. And if a stranger dwells among you and would keep the Lord's Passover, he must do so according to the rite of the Passover and according to its ceremony. You shall have one ordinance both for the stranger and the native of the land. Passover was one size fits all, like Jesus. It was for Jews and for strangers. Jesus is for us all. Verse 15. Now on the day that the tabernacle was raised up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of the testimony. From evening until morning, it was above the tabernacle like the appearance of fire, a fiery cloud. On day one of the tabernacle's operation, this cloud appeared. The Hebrews called it the Shekinah glory. The term Shekinah means that which dwells. The Bible says that God's glory fills the universe, but it dwelt with man in the form of a cloud, a fiery cloud that hovered over the tabernacle. This was the visible, tangible manifestation of God on the earth during the days of Moses. And so it was always. The cloud covered it by day and the appearance of fire by night. Whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle, after the children of Israel would journey, and in the place where the cloud settled, there the children of Israel would pitch their tents. At the command of the Lord, the children of Israel would journey, and at the command of the Lord, they would camp. As long as the cloud stayed above the tabernacle, they remained in camp. The cloud by day, the fire by night, is going to serve now as Israel's navigation for the next 40 years. And the next verses tell us that it didn't really matter if the cloud lingered in one place for many days or for a few days or just overnight. The camp of Israel always followed that cloud. Verse 18, for at the command of the Lord they remained encamped, and at the command of the Lord they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord at the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses. And I love the simplicity here of God's guidance. Sometimes we just make it too hard, too difficult. I mean, when the cloud moved, they moved, man. And when the cloud stayed, they stayed. And this is how I want to live my life. Oh, at times we need to weigh the facts out. We need to examine all the situation, all of the possibilities. And sometimes we need to go and consult a counselor or a group of counselors or whatever. But here's the bottom line. Is God on the move or is God staying put? If God is moving, why would you ever want to lag behind? And if the glory cloud is staying, it would be a mistake to forge ahead. I've got to be willing to go or willing to stay. Don't make it harder than it is. The way to follow God is to just follow God. Okay? Chapter 10. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, make 2 silver trumpets for yourself. You shall make them of hammered work. You shall use them for calling the assembly and for directing the movement of the camps. Make 2 silver trumpets. These trumpets were like bugles. There was a specific sound that they would play to break camp. Another sound to call an assembly, to begin a new month, to offer a sacrifice, to get ready for battle, to summon the leaders, to celebrate a feast. They use these trumpets to signal to the people. And so when they blow both of them, all the assembly shall gather before you at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. But if they blow only one, then the leaders, the heads of the divisions of Israel shall gather to you. The harmony of both trumpets blowing together called the people and the leaders. A single trumpet summoned just the leaders. Now when you sound the advance, the camps that lie on the east side shall then begin their journey. And when you sound the advance a second time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall begin their journey. They shall sound the call for them to begin their journeys. And so the whole camp, and we're talking people, a group of people numbering maybe 2-3 million Hebrews. They broke camp at the sound of these silver trumpets. A different blast signaled the different tribes to get into motion. And you know, we too are listening for a trumpet, are we not? That will signal to us to break camp. 1 Thessalonians 4 verse 16 says that when Jesus comes to rapture his church, when it's time to break camp and join our Savior in the clouds, that moment will be preceded with the voice of an archangel and with the trumpet of God. Jesus will call us home with a silver trumpet of his own. Hey, we'll have a blast in heaven, but it'll start with a blast on earth. These silver trumpets were used for the first time in verse 11. Now it came to pass on the 20th day of the second month in the second year that the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle of the testimony. And as the cloud departed, so did Israel. And the children of Israel set out from the wilderness of Sinai on their journeys. Then the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran. They're now moving north. So they started out for the first time according to the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses. And what an exciting day this must have been. After 400 years in bondage and an additional year in preparation, they're now on the move. The Hebrew nation is headed home to the land that God had promised Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Now, verse 14 tells us that the tribe of Judah broke camp first. It was trailed by the other two eastern tribes, Issachar and Zebulun. The Levitical families of Gershon and Merari then moved out behind them, transporting the tabernacle fabrics and frame. Afterwards, Reuben and Simeon and Gad broke camp and joined the march. They were followed by the Kohathites who carried the furniture. And notice verse 21. I think it's interesting. The tabernacle would be prepared for their arrival. Since the Gershonites and the Merarites left first, by the time the Kohathites had arrived with the furniture, the next campsite had already been set up. The tabernacle, with all of its fabrics and all of its frame, had already been put in place and erected. The furniture was ready to be moved in. Next, the western tribes broke camp, Ephraim and Manasseh and Benjamin. Finally, in verse 25, the northern tribes joined the march, Dan and Asher and Naphtali. And notice what these last three tribes are called in verse 25, the rear guard. Hey guys, there's nothing wrong with pulling up the rear. At times, you put your best, your most vigilant troops in the back to protect against an ambush. Well, verse 28, thus was the order of march of the children of Israel according to their armies when they began their journey. Now Moses said to Hobab, the son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law. Now notice here, Moses' father-in-law is called Reuel. In Exodus 18, he's named Jethro. Probably the same guy. Reuel was his name. Jethro was a title of respect and authority. Now Hobab is Moses' brother-in-law, Zipporah's brother. And Moses wants to hire him now as a guide. This is not a bad idea at all. Hobab was a Midianite. He was familiar with the area. He knew the desert that they were about to cross. He could help them locate water and shelter if need be. Hey, a Bedouin shepherd would be an asset on a wilderness journey. Interestingly, Moses follows God, but he also hires a scout. It's interesting to me. In other words, God sets the direction, but Hobab helped out with some details. And I think you'll find with any venture for God, there's always his part and our part. We follow God, but sometimes we scout out the situation too. In verse 29, Moses asks Hobab, "We're setting out for the place of which the Lord said, 'I will give it to you. Come with us and we will treat you well, for the Lord has promised good things to Israel.'" Hobab is invited on an adventure with God's people. And Moses is offering him a front row seat on a miracle journey. But he said to him, "I will not go, but I will depart to my own land and to my relatives." Hobab wants to return to Midian. And so Moses said, "Please do not leave, inasmuch as you know how we are to camp in the wilderness, and you can be our eyes. And it shall be, if you go with us, indeed it shall be that whatever good the Lord will do to us, the same we will do to you." If Hobab scouts for Israel, he'll share in Israel's blessings. Whether or not Hobab ever signed on, we're never told. And so they departed from the mountain of the Lord on a journey of 3 days. And the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them for the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. And notice the ark of the covenant always led the march. God's presence always led the way. Israel followed the glory cloud. And the cloud of the Lord was above them by day when they went out from the camp. And so it was whenever the ark set out that Moses said, "Rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you." And when it rested, he said, "Return, O Lord, to the many thousands of Israel." And thus the journey has now begun. Israel is on the march. But here's the title of next week's study: How to Turn a 2-week Journey into a 40-year death march. And we're going to find that things do not go well.